Good. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the Wairarapa Policy Working Group Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy Deliberations meeting this afternoon on Wednesday, the 6th of November. I would like if we would all join in with the karakia timitanga on the wall. Mai te tai monga, raro ki te tai, mai iti awa tonga, raro ki te awa raki. Tēnei e te hapuri, awhi ai taratahi. Whano, whano, haere mai te toku. Humi e, hui e, kai e ki e. Right, so we are here this afternoon to deliberate on the submissions that we heard just the other week for the Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy. The meeting is recorded and it will be made available on our council's website. Councillor Bosley is hoping to join us virtually. He did have a 2:30 meeting, so if I could just move potentially at this stage his apology for lateness, which may be amended to apology if he can't join us, and seconded by Councillor Cretney. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Thank you. Carried. The next item on the agenda is, are there any conflict of interests for any of the members to declare? Okay, there being no conflicts of interest, we move on to confirm the minutes from the Wairarapa Policy Working Group hearing, which we held on the 23rd of October. Would anyone like to move that the minutes that meeting are received and confirmed is accurate? Thank you, Councillor Barr. Anyone to second that? Thank you, Councillor Nelson. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So our item on the agenda is the deliberations, and I'd like to hand over to our policy advisor, Sophie, to present the report before we move on to discussions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today you are discussing Te Kaupapa Here Waipiro Arohio Wairarapa, the Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy Deliberations Report. The report outlines the key themes from the 33 submissions that we received on the policy. We found that option 1, adopt the proposed draft Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy, was the most supported individual option, and the majority of submitters supported the proposed policy as drafted or with amendments. That's 24 to 33 respondents. Most proposed amendments were for more rather than less regulation. All of the 5 proposed changes in the policy also received high support from our community. The report outlines options for the Wairarapa Policy Working Group to consider regarding further potential changes to the policy based on community feedback. Staff consider that there is sufficient support for the draft policy to proceed to adoption, and we have met our consultation obligations. If the Wairarapa Policy Working Group considers amendments are needed, in some cases this may require further consultation. This is outlined further in the report. Thank you.
As we move on to discussions and deliberations, the suggestion is that we break it down and limit it by each of the proposals. So the first proposal being limiting the location of off-licence premises in relation to these sites. Staff want to provide any commentary around that before I open to any discussion from the members?
The main proposed changes that we received from submitters was increasing the sensitive site limit to 300 metres to align with the specialist vape retailers limits. So that's the 300 metres. Staff considered that this increase wouldn't work for our small townships, and we considered that the 100 metres aligned with what other councils were doing at the time, and it aligns with our psychoactive substances policy.
Thank you. Okay, members, any discussions, comments regarding the 100-metre proposed?
Personally, I'm quite happy with the 100-metre scenario. I think it covers off a lot of bases, and we've just heard some of the difficulty of trying to incorporate 300. So while 300 may be looked at in the future, I think just for now, I think the 100-metre sits quite nicely.
Thank you.
Yep, I agree. I think it's content specific to our region, and it works for our region.
Seems like a common sense approach, and I feel like this consider an increase, that we would find ourselves in a position of going back to consultation potentially, because those who sit quite comfortably with the 100 may feel very differently about that drastic and comfortable with it as it stands.
So,
Yes, I'm also comfortable with that 100 metres proposal. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go through and have all of our discussions, and then we'll make the recommendations at the end if everybody's comfortable with that. So the second proposal that we consulted on and heard on was reducing the maximum trading hours for off-licence premises. So this was, if you remember, keeping supermarkets the same from 7 till 10 p.m. and then reducing off-licences / bottle stores. So I don't know, again, if staff would like to add any more context for us.
Within this proposal, we received two tranches of types of feedback. One was around aligning off-licence hours and supermarket and grocery hours with other off-licences. That's outlined on page 11 of the report. They're mainly seeking licences to be the same, and some submitters commented on treating all off-licence orders all the same, and how Alcohol Health Watch recommended that consideration be given to reducing trading hours for all licences, as the vast majority of alcohol is purchased from these premises, over 80%, and often cheaply. Health NZ Te Whatu Ora also supported this. Then there was the comments around changes to the hours, so reducing it further, so bringing up that closure time to 9 p.m. So there's the two tranches of commentary. The ones around reducing hours further. We decided on. I'm just notes. The submitters, mainly Health NZ and Alcohol Health Watch, wanted the alignment with the 9 p.m. based off the recent changes in the for the Auckland local alcohol policy and the Supreme Court decision in Auckland, and they considered that this is aligning with the Act, and evidence shows that it would likely reduce alcohol-related harm in our communities. Submitters suggested that the closure time of 9 p.m. is an opportunity to reduce the opportunity for hazardous drinking, such as preloading and side loading and post-loading. And further analysis on that is included on page 13. So depending on which one you wanted to go with, discuss first, we can provide you some more advice on that, but that's included in the report.
Thank you.
thanks, Madam Chair. Would reducing by another hour mean that we would have to consult again?
We considered that it would, or that we would at least need to provide some further information and provide some options around that, take into consideration alcohol-related harm and the tourism economic benefits. Yes.
Any questions or?
Just a comment. I just feel changing those hours to 9 o'clock in supermarkets that are open until 10 will put a lot of pressure on supermarket staff and could cause unnecessary conflict in that environment. So I support the 10 p.m. closing.
Agree with councillor.
Yeah, no, I guess the common theme of this is that I feel comfortable and confident about where we got to, and in terms of the proposal that went to consultation. And I don't think we saw anything considerably out of the ordinary through the consultation that suggests we really got that wrong. And whilst, as Craig said, there is opportunity in the future to continue strengthening the policy, I feel like it's a common sense approach for now.
I'm in agreement with everyone. I think reducing the actual bottle stores hours that we had proposed and consulted on, for me, that actually was more important than supermarkets. And some of our supermarkets close at 9 p.m. anyway. So I also am comfortable with where we landed. And for anyone that is watching these deliberations as well, we've spent quite a few months, even before we went out to consultation, on where we landed with the draft. And so whilst we might not be going into depth discussing things today, if anyone is listening, please be assured that we have certainly covered off in many of the meetings that we've had up until this point. So we'll move on to the third proposal was around the special licenses for events. Again, I just hand for staff to do a recap.
So this
was a 12-month.
This proposal was around creating greater flexibility for special licenses around events, and the proposal received most people were in support of that proposal that responded. And yeah, I think we didn't provide any further commentary in the report, given that it was well supported.
Yeah, and that definitely came through on the sessions also. Any discussion on that point at all?
I think it's just a common sense approach to the issuing of special licenses for events. It's maybe a bit onerous, I think, for some of these people looking for these special licenses to have to continually reapply, when so long as they have got it to the standard required at the start and are seen to be doing what is required of them, then I think it's a good way of cutting down on a bit of bureaucracy too.
Well said. If there is no further discussion, then the fourth policy is also around special licenses for events, and this is focused on children and young people specifically, which was the fourth proposal.
That too had high support from respondents in support of the change.
Sense.
Sense.
And I think the important thing there is that it's for events focused on children. So it's not, it's not going to impact kind of adult focused events. It's those ones that are primarily for children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just another one of those checks and balances that.
And it just sort of clarifies it for anyone sort of, if it kind of had fallen into a grey area before, at least now it is very clear on that. If there's no more discussion on that, then the next one, the proposal that we had, was in relation to driving events. Again,
high support from the respondents towards that change.
Yeah, I hate to bang on with the same thing, but it's common sense, and it's amazing that it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And you think about it, because the way things in society looks at these nowadays, you think, well, it's surprising. That's something we've had to relook at and put in another proposal. Yeah.
But there were just a few other things that came through in some of the submissions, and just if there are any sort of discussion that any of the members would like to have, or further questions for staff that we haven't already covered. So we've spoken about the sensitive sites and aligning the off-license hours and the closing hours, etc. There were some submissions on discretionary conditions for off-licenses, and sort of density limits / sinking lids. I guess the first question is, do the staff have anything more to add that we haven't already had through all of the reports? And or are there any questions from the committee?
Just outlined from page 13, the discretionary conditions. We just found that there was quite a few comments on additional conditions that council may want to consider including. Yes, and there was also a review of taking the discretionary conditions out, expressed by one of the submitters as well.
And as one of the members who sits on the district licensing committee with myself, do we want to add anything around how a lot of this is covered off actually in licenses when they are?
I think it just strengthens what we're doing. And we always have to give regard to local alcohol policy. This helps strengthen it. There was some discussion around single sales, but I was happy where that landed. And again, this isn't stopping us from relooking at this at any stage. And certainly, through our committee work, if we feel that some things aren't appropriate, we can certainly bring it up.
And address that actually when they are reapplying or applying for licenses. Yeah. My feeling. Any other questions and commentary? Sophie, let me know if I'm missing anything or if I've skipped over anything.
I think it would be good to just go through the proposed discretionary conditions just to cover them off. So there was about 5 proposed changes. They proposed a condition around remote sales and delivery, including the ability to require a warning label on the outside of a package. There was also no external display of alcohol products or pricing, including flags, sandwich boards, or any mobile signage. Restricting the methods of payment, buy now, pay later schemes, which entice the consumer with a much lower upfront price, according to the submitters. Limiting the single sales of alcohol, beer, cider, RTDs, pre-mixed shots, and also banning the sale of non-alcoholic products that pose a high risk of alcohol-related harm, e.g. beer pong cups. So staff consider at least 2 of those. We wouldn't necessarily recommend implementing them at this stage, just because we feel that there needs to be more research and testing of some of those conditions, that is around restricting the methods of payment and the banning the sale of non-alcoholic products. We do not consider that at this stage they could be included in a discretionary condition. That, like Councillor Boa said, this doesn't preclude the licensing committee from considering a condition like that, but including it in our list at this stage, we don't think there's enough information to make that recommendation. The other points which the Wairarapa Policy Working Group may want to consider around the discretionary conditions, we've included some advice on those on pages 14, 15 of the report. So for remote sales, we have they're excluded from a lot of the other aspects of the Act, given that they're remote sales. They don't have a physical premise, but they have requirements to make sure that they're not selling to 18 years and under. This is in section 59 the Act, and New Zealand Post requires that all alcohol deliveries must be sent by a courier on a signature required service and must have a courier post special tracking number. But I think what the commentary from the submitters was about was sometimes that is not adhered to. We don't necessarily enforce that aspect, and they recommended a label be put on remote sales so that it's clear to the delivery person that the box contains alcohol. So that is one of the conditions that we've provided some further advice on. We probably would consider that we're unsure whether an imposition of a condition requiring labelling will do any more to achieve the aim of the safe and responsible sale and supply and consumption of alcohol, or minimise the inappropriate consumption of alcohol in the Wairarapa for the Wairarapa licence holders. So if they're not currently meeting the requirements of the Act, will the label do much more to change the behaviour?
And if it is coming, if it's alcohol coming from out of Arohi, then how does our alcohol policy work that way? It's
that raises some compliance issues. So that is one that we probably wouldn't recommend doing at this stage. We can take a listen and watch approach. We know that Waipā and Otaronga have included it.
Monitor the labelling of packages as well. Like,
I think that's down to police.
so it would be left to the police to monitor.
Would also be difficult to ensure that a package is being signed for as well, because I know for me, I allow the couriers to leave things. I sign a waiver, so they can leave my packages without a signature, even though it might be signature required. So I'm not sure how we could ever enforce that side of things.
Enforcement would be very hard, and I can't see the police coming around with flashing lights to check on the label. Yeah.
I think the reasonable steps is all we can expect, really, sellers.
And as you said, it is something that for the duration of this policy, that if it does raise as being an issue, which to date it hasn't been, then it can be, because we need to be mindful of, what real information that we have in front of us to make our decisions for today.
And if it does come, then we've got some preliminary groundwork to go, okay, yep, this is something we need to look at.
Yeah.
The second item was around limiting single sales, which is what you just mentioned. So that was around, we know that young people are more likely to drink hazardously and they're more likely to buy alcohol that is cheaper. So that single sale may be more attractive to them. We know that a couple of other councils have included some provisions around limiting single sales. We consider that some guidance in the policy may further support the safe and responsible sale and supply and consumption of alcohol, or minimise the inappropriate consumption of alcohol in Wairarapa. Otherwise, like we said before, this is something that we could continually watch out for as things develop over the next 5 or 6 years, in terms of whether this becomes a greater issue in our region.
And again, that goes back to being a condition of an off licence when it is granted that there are no single sale under.
For me, I find it's a hard one in that. Okay, so let's say we ban single sales. So we're forcing someone who would just want one beer to have two. It's almost a rock and a hard place scenario, but I think it certainly needs to be looked at, because it wasn't long after our submissions came up. 8 o'clock in the morning, I went mitre 10, and there's the person cycling, and I'm like, I haven't seen that before. So something to be mindful of going forward. Yeah.
So watching brief for the review.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Comments? maintain as we have
Yeah.
currently.
And then the other one was around signage. They just wanted that explicit discretionary condition in there. We already have covered that quite well, I think, within the policy around the requirements around signage and the reference back to the district plan. And so there's already sufficient reference. We wouldn't recommend it to change at this stage, but we can obviously keep it in mind for the next review if it does become a problem, if we see greater proliferation of signage.
And then we did have one submitter requesting a removal of clause 4.9 in relation to noting that to refer back to the Wairarapa Combined District Plan. My thoughts on that, actually, it doesn't hurt to have that reminder in the local alcohol policy that it must give effect to the Combined District Plan, was my personal thought around that. So any other?
It's all got a tie.
It's, yeah, absolutely. Yes,
That's
the
the main key.
main. Are there any other questions or any other areas from any of the members that they would like to raise? I guess that takes us to our recommendations. If everyone's comfortable that we've come to the end of discussions and or any questions for clarification. So we'll move to the recommendation in the officer's report. So I'll take the first one, there's two, and take it together. So it is recommended that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, 1, notes that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group have been provided with the full set of submissions as part of the hearings report, and 2, considers the community feedback received and advice from staff. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Boyer. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So the next recommendation, so staff, would you like me to take these individually or shall we take together? What would you prefer?
Given that there's a level of comfort across the 5 proposals, you could take them.
Yeah. So I guess for the record, I probably need to read them all out. So we have our third recommendation. It is recommended that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, the third recommendation, agrees to the 5 key proposed changes to the Wairarapa local alcohol policy as outlined in the statement of proposal in attachment 2. Proposal 1, limiting the location of off-licence premises in relation to sensitive sites. No new off-licences will be granted for premises within 100 metres of a sensitive site, for example, childcare, educational facility, healthcare facility, marae, place of worship, unless an exemption applies. B, Proposal 2, reducing maximum trading hours for off-licence premises. To reduce the maximum trading hours of off-licence premises, excluding supermarkets and grocery stores, from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. to the new time of 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. C, Proposal 3, special licences for events, to provide flexibility and guidance to applicants and how events are structured over the year. This involves amending the event limit for a special licence from 1 event per month to 12 events in any 12-month period, with a duration limit of 6 months for a series of events. D, which is Proposal 4, special licences for events focused on children and young people, to not grant special licences for events focused on young children and young people aged under 18 years. And E, Proposal 5, special licences for driving events, to require the District Licensing Committee to have regard to the appropriateness of associating the consumption of alcohol with driving events and for applicants to put in place practical steps to minimise the risk of driving under the influence of alcohol. Who would like to move that? Thank you, Melissa. Do I have anyone to second that? Thank you, Tim. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Thank you, that is carried. So we have a final motion, motions 5 to 7. Again, I'll take these all together. It is recommended that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, point 4, recommends the Wairarapa District Councils agree to adopt the draft Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy Attachment 1 and gives public notice of adoption. Recommendation number 5 notes that the Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy will be adopted 30 days after the date on which it is publicly notified. Recommendation 6 notes that the current Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy will remain in force until the revised policy is in effect. And point 7 recommends the Wairarapa District Councils agree to bring the changes to off-licence maximum trading hours into force on the 1st of April 2025 and the rest of the Wairarapa Local Alcohol Policy into force on the 1st of February 2025. I'm happy to move that motion, being the recommendation in the officer's report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Melissa. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. So with that, our meeting has concluded. The policy will go to each of our councils for adoption. Firstly, South Wairarapa District Council on the 20th November, Carterton and Masterton District Councils on the 11th of December. And as members of the working group, please discuss the policy with your colleagues if anyone has any questions. So I declare the meeting closed, and we do have a karakia up on the wall. If I can get someone to board. Join in with that. Kia whakaarea te tāu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakatara ai, kia turuki whakatara ai. Omie, huie, taiti. And special thanks to all the staff, all the mahi that has gone into this, and to my fellow members for all the meetings that we've done. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.